This car right now has Godspeed camber arms on it. About a week ago, I lifted it up to check some stuff and check on a squeak in the front end, and the bushings actually fell out of the arms. So I went ahead, and I didn't really want to, but I ended up buying some Corksport arms because I couldn't figure out a size of bushing that would fit inside the Godspeed arms. So that is what we're going to be doing today. Alright, now with both arms out of the car and side by side, you can kind of see the differences between the two. This is obviously our Godspeed arm. The only reason I'm actually taking these out, I noticed some play, and that obviously should never happen with a rubber bushing. These have rubber bushings, and they do just slide out. I mean, this side, same deal. It's a little harder to push it out. By hand, pushing out these rubber bushings is insane. This one is not as bad, the driver's side, but for some reason, they still have some play, and I'm sure it wouldn't take long before they do the same exact thing. The thing I do like about the Corksport arms is they have a spherical bushing in the end of them, which could be a positive or a negative. For me, it's a positive. I like them. You could tighten them at any height. It doesn't matter because they're not going to bind. They are fully able to move whichever direction needed. I also really like Corksport for adding steel spacers. Normally, these are usually aluminum on a lot of arms. These are actually steel, which is really nice. I do like that. So that is a plus for Corksport, for sure. In terms of quality of these spherical bushings, I can't really speak on it. It seems like there's some Chinese bearing. If they ever do go bad and they are out of the Corksport warranty, I'm assuming they would pay, or not pay, but they would cover play in the bushings. I'll probably end up swapping them out with some FK bearings. Ball joints, I'm not sure if you can get serviced, as in buy new ones, if they're ever develop play in these. They do come pre-greased. They come with a castle nut, whereas the Godspeed arms come with a typical lock nut with an actual flange. I will be reusing this nut just because I like the idea of it being flanged. I'll put Loctite and paint mark it, and that should be good. Both designs actually use the same style to adjust camber. They're just a sliding ball joint. I do prefer a threaded rod that would actually sort of lock it in better. These you can kind of just, they'll slip over time if they're not tightened correctly, and it's a little hard to monitor that, but they work fine. I do wish they would have added caster with these. You can see both of these arms laid on top of each other are the same length. Like, they'll place the spindle in the same position, which would mean there's no added caster. Added caster would be nice. It is good to have in a vehicle, although there wouldn't be a whole lot of room for it just by design of the arms. One more thing I did also notice, it might be a little hard to see about this because just the way the arms are laid out. The Godspeed ball joints are physically taller from where the joint sort of mounts to the top of it. These are much shorter, so theoretically, these should have less issues hitting the strut towers. I was having, not really problems, but I noticed that these would sort of hit the strut towers a little bit, mainly because these bolts stick out so far because they're aftermarket. But that was something I did notice. This arm shouldn't have that problem and hopefully give you more travel before actually hitting anything in the chassis. Just out of curiosity, I pulled the ball joints out of it because I wanted to just look at the design of it and see how it was made. And one thing I did notice is there's no knurling on the joint. Maybe it's not an issue, but I just feel like it would have been nicer to add some knurling on there. That way there's less of a chance of it slipping. So I'll be interested to see long term if these actually end up moving after being properly tightened and set, or if they're good as is and maybe I'm just overlooking an issue that's not even there. Installation of these is pretty simple. My setup's a bit easier because I have coilovers and they happen to be Fortunatos, so the springs are a little thinner than other coilovers maybe. So I actually don't even need to pull anything out. Maybe just turn the wheel at the most, but besides that, this should be the same for your setup. Just gonna go ahead and slide the ball joint in. Place our nut on there just for now. All of our spacers for the spherical joints. And then we'll just slide it in a position. Do this back bolt first. I do notice the hole is a little bigger than it should be because of that actual reason, so you can actually service it easily. This side always goes in a little easier. And like I said earlier, since these are spherical joints, they don't need to be torqued at ride height. You could torque them wherever you want. So I'm gonna actually torque them right now. It's gonna be 45 foot-pounds on the inner bolts. the nut for this upper ball joint, I would recommend Loctiting like I stated earlier as well. And then Corksport claims that's going to be 40 foot-pounds. One thing I wanted to throw in here real quick, I'm in the process of reinstalling these again. I had to take them out to do some measurements, but this is just the spherical bearings being held in there, and there's a lot of force needed to actually move these. So usually a cheaper spherical bearing will have a lot of play and move really easily initially. These seem to fight you quite a bit. So I'm interested to see how over time they'll loosen up, because these will loosen up over time. Same thing with the tie rod ends here and the swivel end links and all that sort of stuff. These are still really tight, so these aren't going to move, but these are a super high quality end. So I don't expect those to loosen up for a while. But these, on the other hand, I'm unsure about. So definitely going to update if time goes on. If anything changes or anything happens, I'll put it in the comments or description, but so far I'm pretty impressed. Okay, so to preface this, measure off the car. Don't measure from arm to arm, because if you remember the way I measured these, I'm not even sure if I actually recorded it. I measured off the car like this, from this hole to this point here, or this hole to like the center of this taper, to sort of get it. Both arms were an 1/8 inch off inwards. They were too far in. And I think why that is because these arms have a different geometry about them. You can see these. It's easier to tell if you sit them like this. They sit flat like that, so they seem a little longer, or maybe shorter in terms of like actual length. These are much more flat because the ball joint isn't as tall. So I think what happens is these may actually gain more camber when the car compresses because they're physically shorter in a way. But that's to be determined. I don't really know if it's going to make much of a handling difference, but measure off a point on the car, like this spot back here, to the control, not the control arm, but the spindle. It'll just make it easier and make sure everything's more accurate, so you don't need to get it aligned as bad. And to conclude this video, I'll say if you take good measurements off the chassis and you make sure you're really careful with where you're actually measuring on the knuckle and the chassis, you can get a pretty accurate alignment without even going on the alignment rack. I did check the toe with toe plates. The toe was still exactly where it was supposed to be, and that's the only thing that would have been offset by adding the camber arms and messing with the camber. I'm not sure how they come out of the box. I'm not sure if they come adjusted to a factory length. What I do know though is the bolts are loose, so definitely tighten them before you throw them on the car. And just have fun, add camber, take some out, whatever you want to do. So far I like the arms. Honestly, the spherical joints you don't really feel much of a difference in. It doesn't really make a huge difference to the driving dynamics of it. The location they're at the upper section of the chassis, you're not going to feel much from that anyways, changing them from a rubber to a spherical bearing. It's mainly the thrust bushings you'll feel, the curved arms that go to the rear, that you'll really feel if you swap those out, but I don't even think there's an option out there for that right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm satisfied with them. I like them. I like that they're black. They look nice in there, and we'll just have to see how they hold up over time. But I am definitely happy to have them in now instead of those broken Godspeed ones.